and welcome back to Starlight Talk. I'm here this week with Camara.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about mental health because she has a podcast where that's what she does, talk about mental health. I have that linked in the description to the Facebook page, so go check that out. Thank you for joining us this week. Hi, Melissa. Thank you for joining. As usual, check out the website, OurTism.com. It's been updated. It looks amazing. I'm in love with it. We have all our services on there, life map, support groups, and all the amazing stuff. My blog where I write about living on the spectrum. And I do these live streams every Wednesday Pacific Standard Time at 7 o'clock. Next week, we're going to have Maeve from Everything's Gonna Be Okay, which is a new show going to be on Freeform that has an autism character. So I'm really excited to have her on. So come back next week for that. This week, I am joined by Camara, who has a podcast that she does that I was a guest on.
Yes, we're so lucky.
That was really wonderful, and she talks about mental health. So if you want to talk a little bit, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Camara Rauen, and I am a social impact, primarily mental health content creator within film and now podcasting. I co-produce and co-host a podcast called Mentality, where we spill the tea on the psyche. We sit down with wonderful guests, such as Chloe, and talk about different stigmatized issues within the disability, mental health, and kind of all-around communities. And we drink tea. It's a fun time, and we get to go deep and also light about it and joke a little bit, so we get a full understanding of the topics we go into. Yeah.
So, and you told me you had a pretty interesting story, and you talked about it, I think, a little bit on your podcast about how you were a little bit antisocial or had some phobias around that.
Yeah. Growing up, when I lived in Northern California, I had pretty severe social anxiety growing up. In high school, I really never felt like I could really be my full self. I had trouble talking to people and making friends, and I didn't really realize the severities of it until I moved away to Utah. I moved to Utah when I was 17 to go to performing arts high school, and that was the first time I actually was comfortable with who I was and really got to understand my anxiety and really even noticed it in different ways. And I started kind of becoming an advocate for it, I think, when I went to Chapman University, and I made a musical about it. I had a few friends who had different afflictions in the mental health world, from PTSD to associative identity disorder, and my own journey I feel I had in writing the songs and doing a medium, like a musical short film within mental health, was really revealing a lot about myself and also the friends I got to talk about and really explore these topics in a fun, lighthearted way, where in mental health, I think, in a lot of different ways is explained in a really dark and heavy way that some people can't always process or process the wrong way. So, yeah.
Fun tidbit I have about the people who are antisocial. I had a couple people who have an anxiety around socializing who have said they want to come on my live stream, which I found so interesting.
I think that people want to break the just because you're antisocial doesn't mean you don't want social interactions. I mean, I've definitely embraced I joke that I am an ambivert, more extrovert with social anxiety, which is kind of the oxymoron where I love people, but also, people, which one do I choose today? And by putting myself in safe situations, that gets myself more acquainted to socializing, networking, parties, and whatever things that I feel comfortable doing, it's made me more the person I am and also more comfortable with who I am when socializing.
Yeah, so I know, like, huge extroverts who love parties and gatherings who's like, I'll never be on the live stream. That terrifies me. And these introverted people who have anxieties about talking to people, like, yeah, I'll be on your live stream. Just tell me what you're talking about so I can prepare. And they're so confident when they're like talking about a subject they know about. And I know that's true for a lot of the autism community, is we don't a lot of us don't like to talk about a subject until we're very comfortable with it. And so you'll see a lot of people have that special interest where they go straight to that and they'll find any connection to bring it back to that very safe topic, because they can't be wrong when they talk about those kind of opinions, and it's not as vulnerable as like, oh, here's something that I've experienced and don't judge me on it.
No, exactly. And I think it's different levels, like being on stage or just being on one-on-one can be more comfortable for people, or maybe more vulnerable for some people, and it kind of depends. I've come to a point where, at least most of the time, not all the time, I'm pretty comfortable one-on-one with people, and doing something like this is actually kind of scary for me. I've never really broadcast myself. Usually I'm on a podcast where all you can hear is my voice. There's no camera, we don't film it. So
and you edit it, right?
Yes, yes.
There's no editing.
Yeah, no editing, can't cut the ums and the mumbles and the la-la-las. So,
yeah. So I did a past episode on anxiety in general, and so can you go into what it's like to experience that anxiety, what that feels like?
Basically, for me, my anxiety is like a constant overthinking. I explain it as like a robot that has a malfunction, where it keeps replaying a simple situation that maybe has gone wrong or isn't going the correct way, and you will keep replaying that memory in your mind over and over again until you find the solution. And that's kind of what the pattern is. It's looking for a solution. But what your brain is doing is keeping on replaying certain situations, whether severe, small, minuscule, to the point of just exacerbation, because you're not going to find an answer. There isn't going to be a solution any next time you watch it. So it creates a lot of just pent-up tension. It can affect your health. It can affect your body, it can affect your mind without really constant reflection and different, whether it's exercise, therapy, maybe medication is the right path for you, or maybe a holistic route. I think that everyone needs their own journey within it, and I found my own balance kind of within, I think, a holistic way, exercising, and also like journaling and poetry and my mediums as well. Podcast has been helpful, but anxiety is kind of this chronic, for me, just a chronic overthinking tension space of you're so aware of yourself to the point of you can't really control what you even think to a logical state sometimes, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
So was there some experiences that started to trigger this anxiety? Like you experienced some type of behavior that bothered you multiple times, or what is it? Like there's some anxiety that there's no cause, it's probably hormonal, or probably like something, like on your period you get more emotional about things you normally wouldn't be emotional about. True. And that's a hormonal reaction, versus there's people who have like PTSD because something happened. So do you have an experience where something actually happens?
Yeah, I do. I have a few. Growing up, I was pretty hard on myself, and whenever I have these memories, this is one of the smaller ones, of when I was a child, that if my parents were ever mad at me or disappointed or would ground me or whatever, I wouldn't be mad at them. I'd be very mad at myself and be very hard on myself. And I remember being I was a very happy and very social kid, but also very inner hard on myself. And I learned when I was in 5th grade, I had a friend who told me that I was a crybaby and that she didn't want to be my friend anymore. And that was the start of a cycle where I started becoming afraid of friendships and afraid of failure within friendships, and just dreaming of people who could be close friends to me. And the cycle ended up repeating itself. In high school, I had a group of friends who I based my musical on, who they'd seen me have a panic attack, and I disagreed with one of the girls in a certain situation in her life, and the girls got together and told me that they didn't want to be my friends anymore and that I should leave the group. And it was a very hard situation for a 16-year-old to process, at least especially one with anxiety that she didn't even realize. I didn't realize that I had at the time. I really know how to process going through. And after that was when I moved to Utah to kind of have a fresh start. And I would see the process in the friends that I was picking. I realized I was picking people who either were not emotionally on the same level as me or in different ways kind of had more problems than I did sometimes, just so that I could be either the savior or so that I could feel like I was more balanced. But those were the friendships that ended up crumbling, not the ones where they were really authentic, genuine friendships. So those were situations that I think I really held onto, and even in little situations for a long time, they were really affecting me.
I'm not using that. I'm using my phone. Can you actually get a charger for my phone? Okay.
Give me a charger.
Yeah, so well, my experience, like, I became selectively mute throughout elementary school, because so often I was the one told that miscommunication was my fault. I misheard something, I misspoke, and so I was told you're wrong all the time. So my go-to answer for everything was, I know, because I was, even when I didn't know, because it felt so awful to be wrong all the time. And when I stopped talking, it's like I didn't get hurt as much. And then on top of that, there's all the sensory overwhelm and processing of everything that was so slow that I would have a delayed reaction even to everything. So like we'd be talking about a subject, and I'd have something to say about it, but we've already moved on by the time I processed all the information. So then I'd say it, they're like, oh, that's not relevant anymore, you don't need to say that. And so even when I was contributing, it was, oh, you're too late, you can't contribute that.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and so it got to a point where I was like, I don't need to talk. And so I really only spoke to my immediate family for a really long time. So, like, I don't know if there was, like, anxiety about it. I didn't even realize that I was doing that. But, so yeah, I can relate in that way. And that's common on the autism spectrum, to have that selective mutism or be mute completely. Oh, hello again. I dropped you guys.
Wow, you got a nasty comment.
I did. I'm not seeing any comments. So are we getting comments? Thank you.
She got a nasty one. Amanda.
Okay, I'm scrolling up.
Well,
This
well, it's always
sounds like a pretty cool podcast. Okay, yeah, Mentality. Look that up.
yes.
I have it linked.
Mentality.
I love the name. And
Well, thank you. I have to say, Light Zach came up with that, so that was his doing. I can spill the tea on the psyche. I will definitely give him credit for that one. We love the name, and we love our little play on words in our tea. So
when he changed his name, I like it. It took me a while, but then I was like, because I do film, I was like, light, camera, action.
yeah. We're trying to figure out a way as friends to like play on them. Like, oh, wait, I've always wanted to have like the lights, camera, action thing. Like, well, it's a good thing my friend and co-host has decided that he wants to go by Light. We can use this soon. So stay tuned. We're figuring that out.
I do want to bring him on and ask about the name change.
His reasoning is really beautiful.
Yeah, I have a friend who changed his name. I won't mention him because he doesn't want anyone to know who he was in the past. He actually considers who he was a different person.
Yeah, it's like a transformation.
And he wants that to be left alone. Obviously, when once in a while I mess up, he's not upset, like, because I knew him before, but I have to introduce him as his new name, and I can't bring him on to talk about it, but I love to talk about it just because I know personal stories of people who've changed their names, and it's important to be respectful of that, and it's not always respected.
Yeah,
and it should be, even if it's just like going from a childhood name to an adult name.
Yeah,
I think it's
and
important.
Light and Zach, and I even get mixed up, and I apologize to him. I'm like, oh, this is so new, and when I've gotten ingrained Zach, and also I think he still uses both names in a way, and Light is just one that I want him to explain why he's going by it. So I'm not going to tell that story for him. That'll be his thing.
So being on a podcast is nowhere near as stressful as socializing with others in a group, as opposed to only being with one or two other people, especially when you have anxiety in different forms. This is from Joshua King. Sorry if that sounded like it was my comment. Yeah,
No, I completely
being able
agree.
to prepare for something or like not even thinking about there's an audience there, I think is a whole nother realm than actually
No,
like being at a party in front of people.
I completely agree, and I think what I was trying to say before is that my anxiety is completely different than others, and I don't want to say that my experience is anyone else's, and everyone has their severities. When I was in college, I was in student government, and I had to go and present in front of like the whole, like 200 to thousands of people, depending on the event we had, and that was horrendous and terrible unless I had a group of people with me. And maybe for some people, having a group of people with them wouldn't help. Everyone's experience is different and is as well as valid, completely. So, it would definitely be interesting to hear
I see
Marcus'
the comment. I'm not even gonna mention it.
It's fine.
Yeah. So she.
First one ever.
Yeah. So she mentioned something about me being tired, and I have chronic fatigue. So thanks for that. So Joshua King says, as you grew up how would you correct your misspeak as opposed to when you were younger, saying, I know. Oh, that was reference to what I said before. I don't think I even addressed it. A lot of times what I do is I don't say anything. I think that I shut down more when that happens rather than, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Where at this stage in my life, I understand communication's two ways. And so if you're going to blame it on someone who has social anxiety or someone who has autism or someone, who's the different person, then you have to meet them halfway. You can't expect them to put in 100% of the effort to try to understand because it's two different people speaking. So it's both people's fault if there's a misunderstanding. Someone didn't make sure the other person understood them and the other person didn't ask enough questions. Like, it's both people involved.
Communication's a two-way street.
If I try, I don't always remember, but if there's a miscommunication, I go, oh, sorry, I misheard, rather than, oh, you misspoke. I try to do it that way just because I understand what it's like to be on the other side. Like, they didn't misspeak. I just don't understand what they're saying. They probably understand completely what they said.
Yeah, and it's okay to need an explanation because the way that everyone talks is kind of more unique to them than some people. So.
We all think so differently.
Yes.
Even neurotypical to neurotypical, you're going to have miscommunication, and it's really important to get clarification. Oh, are you understanding what I'm saying? And if someone's like, nah, I don't, say it in a different way. Don't repeat the same words. I got that a lot. I was like, I don't know what you said. And then they would say the same thing. I'm like, all right. Didn't get it this time. I'm not going to say anything. Or there's, if you're shut down with autism and you're not processing anything, you can repeat it as many times as you want. There's literally, the words are not being processed by the other person. So I would be like, can you say that again? Can you say that again? And like, I see your mouth moving, but there are no, like, it's just nonsense. And so I know some people get uncomfortable to ask people to repeat again. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm not understanding right now. We'll come back later.
Yeah, it is interesting. I would like to even hear more about how you deal with that now rather than like in the past and such.
Oh, yeah. Well, now I have more of an understanding of what autism is, especially now that I have a diagnosis, whereas in elementary school, I did not. And, so at this stage in my life, I have more awareness. It doesn't mean in the moment I understand what's going on, but when I do, I have an easier time explaining, and I can, in those moments, go, you know what, right now I'm not processing what's going on, so give me a little bit, and a lot of times if I, like, realize that's what was happening, I'll go back to that person. You know what? I was so processing at that moment, and if that happens again, just know that's what it was. And I'm very comfortable with explaining autism and explaining my story, and because I think it's important that people are educated on these subjects, which is why I have this live stream, and I'm sure that's why you have your podcast, is so it's a conversation that people start having. So when they see another person go through something that might have been what they saw with me, they're, oh, maybe they have autism, maybe they're slow processing, and they'll have more patience for that situation. And hopefully we'll progress in that way over time and just be like, this person's having a hard time. It's okay. And figure it out from there and problem solve with each other.
Yeah, I think education is the most important part, because if we don't understand something, or if we only know our own perception of something, we're never going to grow or really be able to help out others or even grow as people. So, yeah.
So when you were deep in anxiety, did you even realize how, because my experience with, I was in a state of anger for so long, I didn't even realize I was angry till I stopped being angry. So I'm wondering if you had a similar experience with your anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Utah, I also was in kind of a mentally abusive relationship during the time that I was kind of in the height and most of my anxiety, and my panic attacks were the most severe they'd ever been. And I think I started really understanding it when I was out of that relationship for the time that I was, and it really made me open up to realizing the issues that I had and what I needed to work through. Going to therapy was really beneficial. I think that's kind of the time that I started going to therapy at the college, and it was just really good to find different, just simple solutions to kind of hear my thoughts out loud and have someone at least validate them or kind of help me reframe my thinking, which is, I think, the most important thing, is that we understand that the thoughts that we create are so powerful for ourselves or against others that you have to really create a really good headspace for yourself to be in a good headspace and have positive and good people around you. And that's something that I really learned in the hardest times. I also had a point of really severe depression at that time too, and getting out of that, it's a process. It takes time, and sometimes it's it's not just easy. One of the songs that I wrote for the musical was called I Don't Want to Get Better, in talking about how society or people around you that don't really understand, they just want you to be happy and choose to be better and choose to be the best version of yourself every day, when being good enough is sometimes harder than being better. You have to be good enough at the end of the day is what you want, and when you can't even get there and people are telling you to be better is really stressful.
Yeah, I've always had a pretty positive outlook on things, which I think really helped me get out of the more bad mental health days. Because I remember even when I was in defense mode, I would focus on the positive things in my life and be like, what, right now it's really hard, but I'm looking forward to this little thing at the end of the week. And if I can just get there, where I know there's a lot of people who in a bad mental health who seek out more negative things and just talk about negative, and they're just in a loop of just a spiral that just gets worse. Which negative people really attract negative people.
You attract what you put out.
Crazy.
It's what you put out to the universe you are going to get back. So
I've seen that happen. It's so sad. And even when there's a negative is so much stronger than a positive, because I know of trying to help someone out of that is so much harder than someone who's having a hard day. You drag these positive people down with you. I can feel it drains the positive energy out of the room. And so I think focusing on those positive things. I know there's these journals that are write 5 positive things that happened today. Those are they sound so stupid, but they're it trains your brain to look at things more positively.
Yeah, gratitude is very important. And it's not about being grateful for what you don't what's not happening to you.
No.
I think the wrong form of gratitude is
that's
when
not.
It's oh well, at least this isn't happening. No. You got to take in what you do have and be grateful for that, so you can give back to what you can.
And just it could be something you know what, my food tasted really good today.
Yeah.
The weather was nice. It doesn't have to be oh, I experienced this great fantastic thing.
No.
It could be something so small, you know what, I didn't feel thirsty today because I had some great water.
It was fresh. I took a brisk walk.
you know.
I took a deep breath today, and that felt good.
Yeah, it can be so small.
I think you got to start small to get big. You can't just be looking for, if you look for the big, best thing in your life every day and you don't find it, then that's going to be even more just tearing you down. You have to find the small things so you can build upon to find the bigger positives.
Sasha asked a great question.
Thank you for detailing your answers. It reminds me of the sayings, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 3 lefts do, even if it doesn't perfectly fit. Oh, I like that.
That's great.
Speaking of being in the right headspace, this might be a little strange sounding, but it's relevant, I promise. Does having a certain clothes that either feel a certain way or has a design you really like have any effect on your daily headspace wellness? Well, I don't know if you have watched the talk with Ella London, but if you go back a couple weeks, I did a talk with this girl who only wears yellow, same as me, and we talked a lot about how clothes and color affect your life. So there is color therapy and other therapies that actually focus on that, but I know different people clothing affects them very differently. Where I know for me, when I'm having a bad day, comfort is the most important. And there's other people I know that looking nice makes them feel nice. And both are equally valid. Like, do what works, not what is expected.
Yeah.
Like, that's important. So I don't know if you want to talk to what gives you confidence. I'm sure in social situations, like, I like having a piece that people can approach me and ask about is much nicer than, like, blending in and, like, people not approaching. Like, that's a lot easier for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Anyone who knows me knows that fashion or my own style is very my own, and it's been a very big part of my life for a long time. And I kind of think of it as I feel really comfortable. I never try to wear outfits that make me feel uncomfortable or feel like restricted. But the stuff that I wear, it's like my little Instagram handle, my camouflage. I feel more like blending in and normal when I'm wearing an outfit that I feel confident and kind of crazy fun in. And my hats, like for a while, I even tried to stop wearing hats for a while because it became such an obsession. And also the way people knew me was, oh, where's Camara's hat? She's not wearing a hat, then it's not Camara. I have a collection of 100 hats. It's fun. But yeah, having a hat or having a really just a statement piece that when you look in the mirror, you're like, that's me, and I can go in the world and at least blend with myself or feel like I stand out as who I am, that helps my anxiety and who I am so much more, because it gives me a purpose. I feel one of the purposes to just be me and not be afraid of that. That's the one thing I'm not afraid of. It actually helps me feel calm. So
Yeah, one of the about clothing that I feel like gets missed is you should wear what feels good to you rather than, oh, I'm expected to wear this.
Yeah.
Like when you go shopping and you put on clothes, focus on how you feel rather than the compliments coming or like
Exactly.
what you look like in the mirror, because you'll pick better outfits that you'll actually wear.
you can't pretend to be someone you're
Yeah.
not. It's slowly gonna make you go a little bit upset because you won't really know who you are. Then you gotta choose for yourself. Like, I think it's sometimes a really hard thing. But yeah, when I'm dressing in the mirror, I don't dress for anyone to like me. I don't dress for the people who I'm going to be around. I dress for myself, and I mean, as long as it's for the appropriate situation, obviously. Like, I'm not going to go too crazy, but I will do what makes me feel comfortable and what I feel confident and happy in. Like, in the end, you got to at least provide some joy for yourself and feel like you're being you and not for anyone else. So.
Yeah, I've found a lot of people like to go shopping with me because I figured out something when people came out and asked me questions like, oh, does this make me look nice? Normally they don't actually ask that. They say something really specific like, oh, does this give me a tummy? Or they go, does this, make my thighs look big, or whatever they say. And I always agree with them. Because if they come out and they go, oh, does this look weird to you? And I say yes, they buy it, they'll never wear it because they'll put it on and they'll see exactly what they said. Mm-hmm. So I always go, you know what? that's not right for you.
If you question it,
I agree with them no matter what they say, even if I don't see it. I'm like, you know what? That's not right for you. Put it back. Go get something else. And then they'll come out with something, you know, this looks good, doesn't it? I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's how I make my purchases. Like, if I'm questioning this in any way, I'm like, bye-bye.
No. So I think how you feel is more important than how it actually looks. And I don't agree with people. Sometimes they put out something, I'm like, well, if you feel great, I don't think that looks great, but if you feel great, that's what matters, you know?
I think for the most part, a lot of people can pull stuff off that you would think would never work.
Yeah.
If you have the confidence and if you feel comfortable in it, it will work even better than if you are wearing something that looks normal and you don't feel confident. If you feel uncomfortable in your clothing, people are gonna notice that.
I've seen it both ways. Like, people are like, this looks fantastic. I'm like, what? And I've seen like people like looking fantastic and go, I look terrible in this. I'm like, what do you see? What is happening? But for the most part, when people are confident, they look better. They just look better.
It's a self-assuredness, and it's not about like being at the state of, I have achieved confidence level 10, and so I will feel good in whatever I wear. No, you gotta work on it. You've gotta find things at bare level, like again, piece by piece, that makes you feel like
and
you.
Each day you're gonna be confident in different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
It might not be the same thing every day, and that's okay.
I mean, some people wear the same outfit every day,
And
that's
if it is,
perfectly
that's
fine.
awesome.
That's
If that's how
perfectly
you
fine.
feel good, then yes.
Because I know Ella London, who only has yellow, she has different shades of yellow and goes, you know what, this day I feel like being really bright, and other days, you know what, I don't feel like being that bright, but I still want to wear yellow, you know? So, like, everyone has, like, days where, oh, I feel like a dress, oh, I feel like wearing sweats.
Yeah.
And go with that. Don't fight that, because you'll be miserable. And I do think surrounding yourself with what feels comfortable and focusing on things that make you happy, like I focus on yellow, and that just makes me happy and gives me confidence, and just little things like that, like seeing something yellow just boosts my day. And it's just important to do what works rather than what you think you should be doing.
Yeah. Either way, you're gonna learn that lesson if you learn it now or you learn it later. And might as well be yourself now, because it's a waste of time to try and be something that you're not, and that's not gonna make you happy in the end.
So, you mentioned briefly about an abusive relationship. Do you want to go into that at all? You don't have to mention names.
A little bit. I wouldn't say it was abusive. I want to specify this. Like, I have the utmost respect for the family and the person. Like, we were both not in a good space, and it was a very unhealthy relationship. Unhealthy. That's what I would like to say. I would like to specify.
Someone
unhealthy
who didn't quite
relationship.
get it.
It was just a relationship that brought out, I think, the worst in each of us. My anxiety and panic attacks became worse when I was with them, and their kind of manipulating and words became something that I don't even think they were, unless they were when they were with me. It just kind of was. Yeah, that's something I'm still working on talking about more. I've been really past it at this point. And it's something that I've worked through, and I've really learned in the relationships I've had now, kind of how to look for healthy, positive, and good people to be in my life. So.
Yeah, I know seeking out the right people is super helpful, rather than finding, like, support groups and stuff can be awesome to have, like, people with, like, this, gone through the same thing. But also people who've gone through the same thing have, like, the same mentality as you to go into, like, you can push each other deeper.
No, because if you get to a point where you feel like, oh, no one else is ever going to love me or care about me except for this person, that's the wrong person.
Yeah.
It's the wrong person.
Yeah. So if you're with someone who's digging that hole deeper, whether they're trying to or not, that's not the right person to be hanging out with.
And I understand, because I was in that. It's been a long time since that. It's been a while. Yeah, I've lived a little bit of a life, but I think having that experience, and I think I really grew from it, and it took me some time to really even open my eyes and realize, oh, whoa, this is not good, this is not healthy, this is not who I want to be, and this is not who I want to be with.
And one of the things about when the deeper you are into an unhealthy mind, the less you realize you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking, like, go internally and you go, I have no idea what's going on with me, you probably have some bad mental health going on. Whether it's defense mode, depression, or anxiety. Because I know it's like, a lot of people go, oh, how are you feeling if you're depressed? Like, you just expect them to be like, oh, I'm really, really sad. Normally, you have no idea what you're feeling if you're in a state of defense mode or depression or anxiety, unless you're having like a panic attack, which is such a misconception about it. So if you don't know what you're feeling, you probably are not feeling the greatest. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a situation where someone's feeding you and digging you deeper, you probably have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Because it's so, like, you think from the outside that it would be so easy to be like, you know what, this isn't healthy, we should stop right away. But when you're in it, it's so different.
Especially if you become used to it, then it just becomes kind of this comfortable norm that you don't really know a difference, or maybe you don't even remember the difference. Especially with depression, it can become such a usual, because usually depression is not just something that comes one day and then is by the next. It becomes a usual thing that you're just like, oh, this is just what life is and what either everyone experiences or just what I'm experiencing, and this is just how it is. And you find a way to become comfortable with it, instead of maybe reaching out for help or finding resources or kind of working on yourself, which I think everyone, whether you have depression or anxiety, everyone has mental health, which is just like physical health. We all have to kind of work on ourselves to be healthy and to be in good mindsets.
So Joshua says Einstein wore the same outfit design in multiple pairs for the exact reason.
Nice. Good for you.
There's a theory that Einstein was on the autism spectrum.
Nice. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, but yeah, if you guys want to leave questions like Joshua is, we will answer them. We will talk about them. Oh, there's someone replying. The girl on the right was nonverbal till she was 15. She gives me hope for our boys.
That's you. That's your
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's, I was selectively mute. I wasn't completely nonverbal, which, for me, it's not, and selectively mute can be all over the place. From today I don't talk to tomorrow I do to I only talk in certain places or to certain people, to just situations I don't talk in. So for me, it was didn't talk much outside my immediate family. And I've talked about this before. The first people I talked to were my grandparents, because they spoke to me as equals and weren't very judgmental. I did not talk at school very much till about middle school. I was very good one-on-one. I never spoke at parties, so Christmas, stuff like that. So a lot of my family didn't think I spoke at all. And even though my parents told them that I did, they didn't believe that, because I'd only seen them like at Christmas and like where everyone's together. So I had a lot of extended family who would only see me a couple times a year and never saw me spoke until I was like maybe in high school. So yeah, that's definitely has a lot to do with anxiety, a lot to do with processing, and there's all different reasons why people are mute. And I found that with new therapies now that people aren't going straight to ABA, there's a lot of people who on the spectrum who we thought were not able to talk who are now talking just like anyone else. And now it's okay to use electronic devices, so you can see people who can't literally talk and type things, and can use sign language and use so many different forms of communication. So Yeah, verbal isn't the only kind of communication, and I think we focus way too much on that because there's a lot of obvious tells that someone is not saying what they mean. And honestly, as far as the neurotypical community goes, y'all don't ever say what you mean. And so y'all try to read into us autistic people like we have some secret code. We're telling you straightforward 90% of the time what we mean, unless we have no idea what we're talking about. Because sometimes when you don't know what's going on with you, obviously when I was in defense mode, I had no idea. And so I couldn't just say, here's what's going on with me. But I did say, hey mom, I can't go to school today. I'm too tired. I didn't have language to say sensory overload or, any of those other words I have now. But I said I was tired and I can't go to school, and I meant it. So if you're paying attention, I think you'll see more than you hear.
Yeah, and people talk a lot in nonverbal ways. If you pay attention to people's body language and the way that they react to certain things and facial expressions, there's multiple forms of the way that people communicate and are comfortable communicating too.
And we have such a culture that, like, you ask someone that's so scripted, because I know autism people, we have our scripts, but we're so honest when we even use scripts. But like the neurotypical community, you say, hi, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. Like, you're supposed to say that. If you say something different, people
it's like, this is not the way we scripted it. Well, why is it not the way? Well, you're supposed to be in unison.
So when someone says, and then when someone's like, oh, I'm not having a good day, oh, I'm sorry about that. Moved on. Like, oh, how's the weather? And then it goes to that. Like, oh, we're experiencing the same weather. Like, what? What is there to talk about? Oh, it's raining. Yeah, I don't really like the rain. Oh, I like the rain. Like, what are you talking about at that point?
Small talk is terrible. Oh, gosh. Oh.
And I know a lot of us with autism we refuse to engage in that, and that can be, people are like, oh, you're so disrespectful, you don't know how to communicate. It's like, no, y'all don't know how to communicate, you're saying nonsense.
No, I think in that community, it's this, especially with the society we live in right now, it's the good vibes, the positivity only, the keep etiquette polite, don't say what's wrong, don't go off script, like you were saying, and everyone's trying to be perfect, especially, where we live in kind of the LA area, it's like, we're all perfect, we're all trying to make it and be this perfect version of ourselves, which is not even realistic. So it's kind of sad to see the facade when people can sometimes feel like they have to be fake.
So Joshua again keep asking questions. We love questions. During the times where you had these holiday parties, did you have to leave the party at times so that you could mentally recuperate, aka did you take breaks from parties to be okay? I do that today. I didn't do that when I was younger, and so I would end up having a meltdown. So I would be like, Mom, I need to leave. Mom, I need to go home. Okay, one more hour. Okay, hold on a minute. I need to talk to this person. I need to say goodbye. When I was actually at the breaking point of I'm overwhelmed right now. And then I would have a meltdown and start crying or get mad and start tantruming or whatever I did. And it would be really bad at that point where my recuperation would take a long time. So I would go from, it would look like I'm having a good time 1 second to the next second falling apart from the outside, especially because I wasn't as in tune with my body as I am now, where now I try to constantly check in with what I'm feeling. And one of the things I do when I have a sensory overload is I throw up when it gets so bad. So I do remember throwing up a lot, and I thought that I didn't connect that to like the sensory overload like I do now. I was just like, oh, my stomach hurts. I don't know what's going on. I must have ate something. I must have, where I was actually just sitting in this sensory overwhelming environment until I got sick. So today I take a 5-minute break and then I can come back in and last a couple more hours. And it's so nice because I can be at a party all night. Where when I was little, I'd be there for just like a couple hours and then be done for a whole week. So
it's draining. If
yeah.
you don't have the time.
And we didn't know I had autism then. When we realized, and then I started having a little bit of anxiety about parties, and I didn't want to go to any parties and be like, no, I can't go. I don't want to go. And no one understood why I didn't want to go to the parties. So it'd be like my sister's birthday or my grandparents' anniversary or whatever, or Christmas. And I'd be like, nope, I'm not going. I can't handle that today. I don't want to go through that. I don't want to throw up. I don't want to get upset. I don't want to ruin it for everyone. And a lot of my anxiety wasn't even about like what I might go through. It's like I don't want to ruin the party for everyone else because they would all want to console me and like the party would come to a halt because of they're like, what's wrong, And I'm like, but it's Christmas, we shouldn't be doing this, Even at a really young age, I understood that I had interrupted the fun of Christmas or whatever the day was. And so I had a lot of anxiety around attending parties because that was out of my control. I'm like, I have no idea why I do this, when it's going to happen, where today, I just listen to my body and go, my body's telling me I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to stim for a little bit. I'm going to listen to music. I'm going to just sit in the quiet. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Whatever my body tells me I need to do, I don't go, I'm going to wait 5 minutes because that's not good.
No, you gotta listen to your body and what your mind is telling you, because intuition, and especially in situations like that, you need to be able to listen to yourself, to take the breaks that you need and take care of yourself.
Sometimes just a glass of water fixes everything. It's as simple as that. We don't drink enough water.
It's very true. We're all a dehydrated society. That's why we're all upset right now. No one has the agua they need.
We're crying it all out internally.
Yeah, you see, we're just tearing it up, and then it's not going back to the mouth. We need the hydration.
I can't see what time it is. I have no idea how long we've been talking. Okay, 7:48. Wow.
Nice.
We've been talking.
Talking for a while. That's cool.
So do you want to talk about your podcast mentality?
Yeah, no, we're into our second season. It just actually yesterday was our relaunch for season 2, and we have an episode called Wedding Therapy. It was our first one back, where we talked about with the podcast, Wedding Therapy podcast, to a wedding photographer and an amazing wedding planner came on to tell us all about the stresses and mental health issues within that process, and also the kind of unrealistic expectations of what marriage is, which I thought was a really fun conversation. And throughout this season, we have a lot of really exciting conversations coming up. OCD, bipolar type 1, kind of combination with like schizoaffective, and the naming of that and such, and even some tarot. And yeah, we're really excited for this season. There's a lot of really exciting things coming on, and we love suggestions of topics that people think that we should cover. We are advocates. We are not experts. That's how we go into this, because we want to learn and educate ourselves so that others can have open conversations as well. Yeah. That's that podcast.
Yeah, it's so cool. One of my friends told me, because I send him all the stuff I do. He was like, when he listened to the podcast, he was like, yeah, I went in to watch it, and I was listening along, and I don't normally listen to podcasts, and so I was pretty sure like 10 minutes in I would turn it off. And he's like, I listened to the whole thing. I've never listened to a full podcast before.
No. You were a wonderful guest.
He's like, this is such a good podcast.
Well, it was a great episode.
Awesome.
Too.
Like, so yeah, they're so good. Your podcasts are so great,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm really glad that subject is being talked about, because it isn't talked about as much as it should be. Mental health and how it affects so many different things.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah, I completely agree. I think that a lot of media today, I think as I was saying in the beginning, is taken on so heavy and just dark and shrouded and untouchable, or only touchable in this dark, heavy situation. When we can just have a glass of tea, we can make a joke, we can learn something, we can make it light, we can make it just easy and fun. Mental health is like working out. You can be sexy, cool, and fun with your mental health and with whatever kind of subject that we don't know. Taboo doesn't have to be taboo. We can make it tab cool or whatever.
Tab cool.
That was really bad. That was really bad. My comedy skills are still in the works, guys. No, but I admire everything that you're doing with OurTism and your blog and such. So you definitely are someone that we look up to as well. And we're very happy that we had on. It was a great episode. You should check out our episode, Autism with Chloe.
Yeah, so I have Mentality linked in the description if you would like to check out that. And I have Camara linked. I don't know if you want anyone on your Facebook, but I'm sure if you want to be a guest or you want to ask her questions about mental health or mentality, I'm sure she'd love that.
Oh yeah, I love answering questions about the podcast, mental health. I'm not an expert in mental health. You can talk to me about my own experience, but yeah, mainly the podcast is a fun way to be. So if you have any suggestions or things you think we should cover as well. And then our podcast email is mentalitytalk, which is mental-I-T-E-A talk@gmail.com. Feel free to also email us there. You can message me as well, but if you want to send us an email or have any questions or things you'd like us to discuss, let us know. We're happy to do so.
So how did you decide to start the podcast? I know you did an episode where you talked about it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think in our last episode, and a little bit in the first episode, we went into that. Light and I were basically sitting down, kind of just seeing how each other were. We were just catching up about what we were doing, and I was talking about this kind of platform that I'm still working on. I was wanting to start about mental health and media, and he's like, "Have you ever thought of doing a podcast?" I'm like, "Oh, a podcast? No, but that sounds fun." He's like, "Yeah, I really want to do a podcast and something impactful." I'm like, "Well, mental health's impactful. Let's do a podcast." And he's like, "Yeah, well, let's do a podcast." And he had the equipment at the time, and so he worked at a small studio that we were able to kind of work out of, and then after he moved from that studio, we ended up finding the one that we go to now in Koreatown, and we've just kind of learned as we went, and we've really fallen in love with it because we feel like we're learning so much, and hopefully our goal is to help people have these conversations and continue to learn more. And I think that's why we've started it, is so that we could learn more and educate and make mental health, just destigmatize it and make it easier to talk about. And even the things that are taboo to talk about, make it a little bit at least known and open conversation based.
Yeah, it's just so cool that you are talking about these things, because getting these stories out. I know there's a lot of intersection with a lot of the different episodes you have with autism, because there's a lot of misdiagnosis or double diagnosis of someone with autism having other diagnoses that you've talked about, like OCD or ADD or I know schizophrenia is commonly misdiagnosed with autism. They overlap back and forth, which is so weird.
People just want to jumble things together.
And schizophrenia is like, it sounds so scary, and it's not like.
Yeah, when that episode comes out, that's going to be our, I think, you get a preview of the next episode.
I know people who. I know someone who was misdiagnosed with that, which is insane. And so that was very scary for her and her family. And it's way more common for girls to be misdiagnosed with that, because autism is stigmatized as something more gender-based in a guy. I don't know. There's no reason for that
People just want every statistic, like, okay, this is just more of a boy thing, or this is more of a girl thing, or this is more of this kind of a thing. I need it to just make sense. And
so, like, obviously it can't be autism, so it has to be the most off the wall thing.
No. And even those off-the-wall things, like, those are misunderstood, too,
Yeah.
and like, divided amongst and such,
What I meant was, like, you're showing no signs of that, but that's the only
but the
thing.
only thing that it could be is,
could
like,
be.
when you're not showing signs of something, like, that's a completely other thing that you don't even need to go into.
And then people who are showing complete signs of that is like, oh, no, it's probably autism. Like, I don't understand.
Let's just switch the two.
The diagnosis.
They'll find each other, they'll meet, they'll be twins, and then they'll switch and realize they had the opposite diagnosis.
What I didn't know for a while is my friend was diagnosed with ADD before she was diagnosed with autism. And when she got the autism diagnosis before, you had to pick which one affected you the most.
What?
And you couldn't have a dual diagnosis because you could only get services for one of them.
Oh, gosh.
Where now you can have dual diagnosis, you can have multiple. And so she had ADD or autism, and she had to pick.
That's
that's crazy.
Pick which one you identify more with that is more severe. No. Like, they're both things that you have that you want to work through.
Yeah. So
or work
yeah,
with.
you can have a lot of things.
And you can still be the amazing person you are. The things don't really make you who you are.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about like the medical community all day.
That's a whole other conversation. That's one.
The diagnosis process of things So just knowing yourself is so important, and that I think that really helped me figure out how to help myself. It's like, okay, I have autism. What does that mean? How am I affected by autism? Because then it's like, it's still such a spectrum. When you get to an actual diagnosis, it's like ADD affects people so differently. Autism affects people so differently. There's so many different traits with each diagnosis. It's like, okay, which ones affect me and how do they affect me? And so like really diving into who you are is important in order to help you on that journey through your mental health.
Yeah.
It's
Gotta get in touch with yourself, people, and whether that's whatever that way is, meditating, journaling, taking breaks, and learning about yourself.
So I know you're a writer. So how has journaling helped you?
Depends. Sometimes it's not great to look back on the angry journal entries. I think I did a lot more in college a little bit, and I've been back and forth with whether I want to start journaling again. I think if it's like a severe moment now, I'll either write about the really good stuff and the really bad stuff. The really bad stuff I'll write about, and I'll either rip it up or I'll kind of never look at it again, or the good stuff I'll look back on to kind of remind myself that there is a lot of good. I think having things that you've written that you're proud of, that you can look back on and brings you joy and reminds you that you're a good person, is important to have.
I have a journal, and I found I really only write in it when I'm going through a really bad time. I don't really write it about my good times, and I wish I did more because I want to read that. I don't want to read about the sucky stuff. And even like looking back and reading it, I'm like, oh my, I was so over dramatic. Like that's not actually what happened. It was just like how I was viewing things, you know? And it did help me go through it. But what really helps me the most is I write scripts about what I'm feeling. You know, when my grandfather passed away, I wrote this short film that I'm in love with and I really want to create one day. I just remember I read it like 2 o'clock in the morning, my best stuff.
That's the best time.
And just like crying hysterical as I'm writing this. And then when I finished, I was just like, I feel so good. But I don't want to edit it now because it was a therapeutic piece. It wasn't a, you know, oh, I want to write a good story. So, my friends at film school, one of them told me, like, oh my God, you write like these nonfiction, fiction pieces because you put a part of your story in there that are so powerful. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, you should definitely do something with that.
So I hope I can share that. I know on my YouTube channel, last on the list is one of my favorite things I did, and I wrote that about a time in my life where I felt forgotten, because my twin sister had gone through a lot of health problems and was very focused on, and my little sister was very focused on because she just screams the loudest. And so I felt really forgotten, and so I wrote about that, and it's not at all a true story what I wrote, but it was what I was feeling, and I know a lot of people connected with that, and I didn't even mention anything about any of the characters having autism, and I've had a lot of people watch it and go, obviously this character has autism. I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's me, so I guess I have autism.
You wrote the characters.
And so people have seen that, and that's really cool, because I didn't mention that she does, and there's no dialogue in it. So
Yeah, those pieces are really powerful. No, I think that writing can really, script writing, I've actually been taking embarrassing or painful pieces of my my experiences and turning them into comedy scripts, sketch comedy.
Yeah, I have some
that's
of those
the most
too.
fun. I'll look back on this, I might have been very upset when that happened, but now I can find a way to make it funny. And I think that actually has helped me really heal and empower myself. I'm like, oh no, I have the power to go into any situation and make it what I want it to be. I mean, obviously, there are some that I'm like, this probably is not a comedy, but I can make it into something and still create my art and make an empowering piece that someone can connect to. But I think that some of the embarrassing ones, comedy helps.
Those are some of my favorites, just because you can tell a very powerful story that the masses can watch and relate to, because everyone loves comedy, where when I've written more dramatic stuff, people are like, well, I don't really want to watch something that's going to make me cry or make me angry, where when I make a comedy, people are like, oh my god, it's so deep, but I was laughing all the way through, and I'll watch it again and I'll show people it. It's like, but you also learned about autism, or you also learned about depression, or whatever it was I was writing about. And I think those are really important stories that should be. I know Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime did that. It's just a wonderful play.
I'll have to check that out.
For me, it was a comedy. They did a lot of humor in these really dark scenes, is what I meant by that.
Dark comedy is very effective.
Not that it was
the right way.
Comedy, but it does these really great comedic moments about really, really dark things that are just great. They're fantastic. So I'm going to start wrapping up.
Joshua wants to be on your show.
All right, Joshua, email me at chloeestelle@OurTism.com, and please. So, yeah. So, Joshua says taboo is almost laughable with people on the spectrum. We're almost too blunt. That's so true. There's a lot of us on the spectrum who take a long time to learn what's inappropriate and actually never learn that. So unless someone straight out says, you know what, I'm uncomfortable with that, we'll just keep talking.
People got to communicate effectively.
Yeah, straightforward.
Just be straightforward. Something you don't like, just say it.
All right. So thank you guys for watching. Come back next week, please. I do these podcasts, or these live streams. We were talking about podcasts. These live streams.
Come on our podcast.
Every Wednesday at 7 Pacific Standard Time. So if you're on the East Coast, that would be 10 o'clock. So come back next week. We're going to have Maeve from Everything's Going to Be Okay. That is a new freeform show that is going to focus on autism. Well, has an autism character. But there's it's created by Josh Thomas. So go look him up if you don't know who he is, because he's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated being able to talk with you today.
Yeah, so this week we had Camara on. She her podcast, Mentality, is linked in the description. I don't know where it is. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
So do you have any last words you want to say?
Mental health is important. Everyone has mental health, and doesn't make you less or more of a person. Just be you, and just take a day to really learn yourself so that you can be the best. Put that oxygen mask on so that you can treat everyone else with respect. Yeah.
Very true. The more you help yourself, the kinder you'll be to everyone.
Yeah, let's create a kind world. It's already cruel sometimes. Let's create
Your
a kind
patience gets so much longer when you feel good. So,
Yeah.
thank you guys for
Thank
watching.
you.
Stay colorful. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.